Good afternoon. My name is Andres Ambrosi, and I'm a solution architect at Perspectium. And today I'd like to take you through a use case around Service Catalog and being able to federate that process across other applications. We'll be using the Perspectium Replicator technology, and we'll be utilizing the message broker service, and that's what's going to handle the handing off of data records from one application to another. The way we're architected is that you can have one publisher of data and many subscribers. So in a larger use case or process, you could have a request originating in ServiceNow and approvals, work tasks being completed within a Salesforce application, Workday, SAP, etc. And then data can be pushed out to an archive database or a data warehouse for reporting purposes, all at the same time with low impact to your application. Today we're going to keep the process and use case fairly concise. We're going to have two instances of ServiceNow, and we're going to have approvals requested within one instance representing the original request, and then approved within another instance, and then that will update the original request. We're also going to take tasks that are being generated in the request that was generated from a Service Catalog, and then completed that work being completed in another instance of ServiceNow, really proving out the use case that you can get work done in other applications, to be able to leverage those applications and those workflows, and yet be able to contain your request process, in this case, in one place for reporting purposes, for auditing purposes, and making it easier for your end users to know where to go to request infrastructure software, even desktop devices. And submit a request, and it's going to be for hardware, and it's going to be this sales laptop right here. And I'm going to choose it, and I'm going to go ahead and order now. And when I do, I now have a new request that's been created, and I'm currently at the stage where it's asking for the department head to approve this request. Okay, so I could leave it here and watch it advance, but I want to see a little more of the detail around that request. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is open up that request in its more detailed format, and I can see that initially it was approved based on the workflow, and I currently have my requested item workflow running, and we're waiting for the department head to go ahead and approve this. Okay, so back here in the other instance of ServiceNow, I should have received an approval record asking me to approve for David Liu. So he's the original approver. I'm a delegate. I can go ahead and float over this, and I can see a summary view showing me the sales laptop, how much it is, and that's been requested for me to approve it. So I'll go ahead and approve this. And when I do, I no longer have any additional approvals I need to complete at this time. Okay. Now what's happening behind the scenes, we'll take a look at this here, is that Perspectium is doing a couple of things. So here in the outbound message queue is we're sending that update across to the other instance of ServiceNow, really to the message broker service. And you can see that this message has a little bit of header information, and then the entire value is encrypted. So whatever passes through our message broker service is secure, because we're encrypting at source and then decrypting at target on both sides. We'll never hold those encryption keys. Those are only held by you as the customer and the owner of that data. Okay, so we can see, oh, we've actually received our next approval. I haven't even shown you the request yet. So if we looked over here and we say reload form, I can see we have advanced the stages. The department head approval is complete. We're now at the CIO approval. And if we were to go into the requested item, we also have a workflow that is advancing. And so this is what's governing those approvals, and then we'll generate our tasks as well. So let's come back over here. Now it's Bo who's being asked to approve this particular part of the request. Again, I can always click into it to view the summary of this approval as well. And we can see what requested item he's going to be approving for, because we brought that all over along with the approval. So I'll go ahead and approve this, and my work is done again. No tasks, no approvals, and I've completed that portion of it. Okay, so at some point, the additional approval will come through. Let's come back to the original request, and we'll go ahead and reload our form and see if we received that approval, and we have. And now we have the CIO approval has been completed, and now we're generating tasks, order fulfillment. And in fact, if I come to my workflow here, I can refresh it and I can see it advancing as well. And we've generated a task off of the requested item. And if I were to go ahead and scroll down here, I can see we have a task of procurement. Please fulfill this order. And back over here, at some point, I have now received this task. And now I can go ahead and work the task to completion. And you can see that it's very similar to what we saw in the other instance of ServiceNow. Again, very real time. I'm able to generate these tasks, have my folks come in, work the task, close the task, and update the corresponding request. Okay. And so back over here, I'm going to see a couple of things happen. If I come back to the original request, I should see at some point, we're going to see that order fulfillment stage complete. So I'll go ahead and reload my form. And I do have that completed now. Order fulfillment is completed. And now we're on deployment. And if I were to look at the workflow, I would see that we have now advanced it further. Again, we're illustrating the fact that we're letting the request run its workflow on its own. Go ahead and send work out to other applications, in this case, another instance of ServiceNow, to complete the work. We can see that now we're asking field services to deploy this item to the user. And so field services can come in here, work its task. It already has information around that requested item. It's a sales laptop. I can go ahead and close this task when I'm completed. My queue is done. That's all I needed to worry about, because I have other things to do, and I've completed my approvals and tasks. Along the way, this request is being updated. So we'll see at some point, I'll go ahead and reload the form, that all our stages are now completed. We have deployed this sales laptop. Of course, if we look here at the workflow, we'll see all of our activities that were completed highlighted. And for my end user, they're going to see something that looks similar to this, my requests, which are not active because it's actually going to be closed. We'll see a nice self-service view where we've got all of our stages complete. I should have my laptop in hand. And that was all done by Perspectium handling the underlying structure, the underlying data. And you as a ServiceNow administrator were able to set up those shares so that approvals, tasks were shared in real time to the message broker service. And then all I had to do was come into my other application, and this could have been in Salesforce, and this could have been in another application. If I chose to use ServiceNow, it's what was readily available. I set up a subscribe, and then in that subscribe, I was able to specify what did I want to receive and how did I want to receive it, so that tasks could be completed and approvals could be completed on that side of it. And so that was our use case. Very simple one. Ordering something in the catalog, having a request generated. That request has several approval records that are generated by a workflow. They are requested. They are approved within another instance of ServiceNow, another application. That update is then sent back in real time to the request. And eventually tasks are generated that are pending, and then the work is completed, another instance of ServiceNow, and then everything is wrapped up with a completed set of stages and a completed request for the end user. So that's my demonstration. Thank you for your time, and hopefully you were able to learn a little more about Perspectium and our ability to federate out business processes using our message broker service and your data. first thing we need to do is we need to set up the Perspectium shares and subscribes. And it's really a very simple matter because the Perspectium Replicator technology is native to ServiceNow. All I have to do is come over to the left-hand navigation bar, go ahead and navigate to Perspectium, and come over to what's called a dynamic share. So currently we're sharing several tables, but what we're not sharing are approvals. And so let's go ahead and create a new share. And a dynamic share is a real-time share to the message broker service. So once that message arrives there, then we have the ability to share that out to multiple applications. All I have to do is go ahead and choose the drop-down and navigate over to the approval table and choose to have this active. I also am going to go ahead and choose triggers. Whenever an approval is created, updated, or deleted, I want to go ahead and share this. I'm going to turn off interactive only because we're going to have workflows that are also going to generate approvals. In additional settings, I could share out any journal fields or attachments tied to this approval, but we don't need to. But we want to share a reference field record. And what this means is within the approval record, there are reference fields. These reference fields are pointing to other records, other tables. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and choose the approval for because this is pointing to the original request or requested item. And that way, when I pull up an approval within another instance of ServiceNow or another application, I'll be able to see the original request that this approval was submitted for. So now I'm going to tie that together. So when the approval record is shared, I'm also going to share the corresponding parent record that it represents. So I'm done. I'm ready to dynamically share approval records that are generated, updated, or deleted within this instance of ServiceNow. So what I also need to do is I need to come over to my other instance of ServiceNow, and I need to make sure that I can receive that data. So the same thing, I'm going to go ahead and navigate to Perspectium on the left-hand navigation bar. And this time I'm going to go to Subscribe. And in here, I have a whole set of tables that I'm subscribed to. So I'm ready to receive data into those tables, but I don't have it for approval. So I'm just going to come over and say New. I'm going to come over and choose the table, which is Approval Table, and set up the active trigger. I want to run business rules, and that way I ensure that there's any additional automation that's occurring will run when that approval record is generated within this instance. And I'm also going to say whenever an approval record is created, updated, or deleted, I want to go ahead and include it. Now I could further refine this to generate a condition by simply choosing a field that represents one of the fields on the approval record and set a condition, so only certain approvals would come through, but I want them all to appear at this point. Okay. The other thing that I should have set up is making sure that any approvals that are updated in this instance of ServiceNow are sent back over to the original request. And so I do have that. I have a dynamic share that will represent the update back to that instance, and it's set with its same triggers that I had on the original one. So I'm good there. All right, so I'm ready to go. I'm going to come over to my queues. So I'm going to be looking at a couple of queues. As my user system administrator, it's going to be a delegate for several users who are going to be asked to approve a request or accomplish work tasks. And currently I have none within my queue. So back here in ServiceNow, I'm going to come over to the catalog, and I'm going to go ahead